Hey everyone, it's VJose32 here. Quick update. The contest today is your last chance to enter the contest. I've had a bunch of video responses today alone. I'm up to about 67. I've gone through a lot of them over the last couple of weeks, but I got a bunch to look at today. I need to contact my other judges, TechnoHack7 and Schwarzenegger Magic, to see where they're at and what their opinions are, and to determine winners. And I will post results by Sunday, possibly Friday if we're lucky, but for sure by Sunday. And I just want to thank everyone for entering. There's so many great videos. You guys have made this job so difficult for me. There's so many great videos out there, and so many for me to look at yet. And so my two assistant judges will help me figure out who the best winners are, or who the best entries are. Although I do have my own top 10 or 15 as it is. Anyway, I do got a couple of deck reviews. I got these in the mail yesterday, and they're pretty interesting. In case you haven't seen them before, they are the Crimson decks by Dan Sperry. Or Sperry, I should say. If you haven't seen Dan Sperry before, he's kind of weird. He's kind of like a Marilyn Manson of Magic, if you will. That's what he looks like. He kind of looks like Marilyn Manson. Anyway, this is his original deck, the Crimson deck. It came out, I'd say, about a year ago, so I just never picked it up. Wasn't really my cup of tea, but then finally, recently I decided, what the heck, might as well add it to my collection, and I'm not too disappointed, or displeased with that. The French is Dan Sperry, Crimson playing cards. It's got this kind of a bat wing type of a look to it. There's some wings on there, look like bat wings. And there is something here in red. Can't really make out what it is. There's a couple of razor blades here on the bottom. And lots of red and dark colors, because that's the type of deck it is. On this side it says Crimson, and this looks like it's a rose. And there's some more red designs. And this side the same thing. The top it says Dan Sperry's Crimson playing cards. The bottom it says Crimson, it says dansperry.com and mjmmagic.com. That's where you can get these, MJM Magic. And you know, they're not too bad in price. What, $8 or $9 each? It's not too bad. And dansperry.com, check that out if you want to find out more about this guy. He is actually on America's Got Talent. I think it was last year, for their YouTube portion of the contest, and it's pretty interesting. You can check those videos on YouTube of him on America's Got Talent, and they're, like I said, pretty interesting. This is the back design card. It's a little bit dark, a little bit hard to make out details. The camera's a little bit crooked. Again, we have some razor blades on there. You got some artwork, red. There's lots of grays and dark colors. Like I said, it's generally somewhat difficult to make out the details or what it's supposed to be. Of course, it's supposed to be dark, obviously. You open up the flap, there's nothing there. Open it up, you get a couple bonus cards. First of all, you got an ad card, which is pretty cool. Just kind of a deranged looking rabbit, and it's just dansperry.com. And there's the back design of the cards. And I'm just trying to see something here. Almost. It basically has a one-way design. Very hard to see, but there is like a blood splatter in this corner where my finger is here. See a little red line. This side, nothing. So that makes it a one-way back design in my opinion. Although this corner and this corner are the same, looks like it. But yeah, you can see the back design a little more clearly on the cards than you can on the box. But still kind of dark and hard to make out, but still kind of cool. Then there's this other card. It says, coming soon, Dan Sperry's Silly Rabbit Custom Playing Cards. And there's the back design of that. It's got some weird rabbits on there. And then there's a number 13, I believe, on there, X111. Which is Roman numerals for 13. There's some swords. It's kind of a cool back design, although kind of weird. However, this deck, I have not seen anything from it. And this, like I said, this deck was released a year ago at least. I did some searching. I found some forum posts saying that he was going to be working on his second Crimson deck first, and then he's going to do this one. So perhaps now that the second Crimson deck has come out, perhaps he will work on this Silly Rabbit deck, which is kind of a silly deck. Kind of silly looking. I don't know. Just kind of a weird rabbit. But then again, I think I've seen weirder. I'll put that aside. One thing I did notice in some of the cards, such as this ad card, is that the borders are pretty often centered from top to bottom. Not too bad side to side, but top to bottom. Most of them aren't too bad, but I have seen a couple that are a little bit iffy, in my opinion. The face cards, as you can see, are standard bicycles, same with the court cards, and the aces, except for the ace of spades, of course. But they're all standard bicycles. Nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't really fit the whole theme of the deck, in my opinion. But that's what you get. The second deck is a lot more customized. Wait till you see that. If you haven't seen it before, you're not going to believe it. That's for sure. But this one, yeah, fairly standard bicycle deck, in my opinion. The ace of spades looks like this. It's some kind of a weird creature with wings in the background in red, like angel wings. There's blood spatter on it. There's this bizarre A in the two corners for the indice. And then there's this artwork in the two corners. And this whole face almost looks like it's metallic. And there's like branches coming out of the eyes. And this here on the bottom is a bird upside down. Flip it around. There you go. Tweet, tweet. It's a bird. Yeah. A bizarre ace of spades, a bizarre deck. Not quite as bizarre as the second one. The jokers look like that. They're not my favorite. A little bit hard to make out. It says Joker in red here along the center. I don't know if you can make that out. Then there's that kind of a red rose in the center. You got some wings. You got 4 heads, 2 on each side here. Again, hard to make out. There's blood spatter. It's also one way because you can see there's different blood spatter on this corner and this corner. And there's some artwork on the corners, and there's more blood spatter here and here. And one thing you can also notice, maybe, is Dan Sperry's face, or half of his face on this side, half of it on this side. Ironically, it's the same half on both sides. But that's what Dan Sperry looks like, in case you're wondering. Like I said, he kind of looks like Marilyn Manson. And there is no reveals on the jokers or anything like that I can tell. And like I said, the deck is pretty much a standard bicycle. Custom decks, custom jokers, and a custom ace. All the number cards are the same as a standard bicycle. Air cushion finish, as far as I can tell, although it doesn't specifically say that on the box. Oop. They dribble fairly nicely. spread fairly nicely. And they fan nicely. Overall, you know, it's a good quality deck, but this is standard bicycle and finish in stock. Add in most of the cards. Pretty interesting back design. The Jokers I'm not a huge fan of, and the Ace of Spades I'm not a huge fan of. But they are interesting, and if you're into like this type of stuff, then obviously it's a good deck to pick up. But it is a little bit hard to find. You can't find it on mgmmagic.com, and that's about it. Because I haven't found them on YouTube or eBay, I mean. I was not able to find them on eBay or any other site. Every other site that had them was out of stock. And they're not printing these anymore, so they are going to be harder to find. As far as this deck is concerned, I don't know what I would rate it. Probably a 7 out of 10, I guess. Just seeing as how it's mostly a standard bicycle deck. Not a whole lot of customization. It would definitely receive a higher ratings if it had a better finish, or if it had custom code cards to go with the theme of the deck. Oh, excuse me, I dropped the card. Anyway, that is the original Crimson deck, and this is the new one that just came out not too long ago. You can get it on the same website, mjmmagic.com. You seem to be associated with Dan Sperry. This one says Crimson on top, Resurrection, 2nd edition playing cards on the bottom. You got this kind of a, almost looks like a cross with a skull on it. And there's a rose on the bottom. There's a rose on Crimson as well. And there's blood dripping from Crimson on this one. Actually, this one kind of has blood all over it too. Another thing to note, this one does not have any seals on it. This one does. On this side it says Crimson Resurrection, and there's some artwork on this side. This side is the exact same thing, as you can see. It's very, very tiny writing. I don't know why it's so small, but take my word for it. It says Crimson Resurrection. On the top, I think it just says Crimson. You can't really tell because of the seal. And there's some artwork. On the bottom, it says dansperry.com. and mjmmagic.com. There's all sorts of logos and graphics. There's this triangle. There's this rabbit from that silly rabbit deck that we haven't seen yet. Or at least, that, well, that's Dan Sperry's logo anyway. That was on his ad card. Then there's a bunch of other weird symbols. And it says Ericus and Finis, made in USA. So that one we know for sure is an Ericus and Finis. And then there's the back design, which is pretty cool. It looks like it's almost three-dimensional. It looks like you're looking down into a pit of lava or fire. In my opinion, anyways. It looks fairly three-dimensional. You got skulls on there, on that kind of a cross. This is the same design as the front of the box here, only duplicated, as you can see, or a mirror image of it. And then there's all sorts of artwork in the corners. It's almost like leaves or vines, and then these look like razor blades as well. And there's more razor blades here in the center. There's something about razor blades in the sky. And of course, black seal, nothing on the flap. When you open it up, this card actually has a couple of special cards, including a blank card. And there's the back design. As you can see, it has black borders, right, which means it's going to be chipping, and there already is chipping with these cards. It also comes with a double backer, always nice. And again, there's the back design of cards. It's fairly interesting, quite interesting. It's very detailed, almost a little bit too much going on with this back design, but it's still, like I said, quite interesting. The number cards, or spot cards, if you will, are basically standard bicycles. They almost look like the perfect pip because they look like the smaller pips on them. And I'll just, oop. It's a lot to sew with this deck, so I'm just going to go right to it. Like I said, the number cards are all basically standard. The jokers look like this. Pretty interesting, pretty cool. They're like a jack in the box. And there's a J on the box. And it says Joker along the sides. And there's blood spatter, and it's pretty interesting. It looks like a jack in the box that you would find in a horror movie, in my opinion. That's what the jokers look like. And they are two-way designs from what I could see. No one-way design. And same with backs. I haven't noticed anything to indicate that'd be like a one-way back. Then again, I could be wrong. I just noticed that this is a one-way back design. I'll show you. It may be hard to tell, but you see this spot on this side? There's one here and one here. Nothing on the other side. So if you reverse a card, you're going to see that there's a card reversed. You can see right there. I reversed it. So that's pretty interesting. The aces look like this. There's your ace of hearts. It actually has like veins running into it, like it's a real heart, and it looks like there's been blown up or something because there's blood splatter all over. And there's also this smoke effect all around it, and custom indices with a small pip and a big A. The ace of diamonds, pretty similar. There's the ace of clubs, pretty interesting again. And the ace of spades actually looks like an ace of spades, not like the other one. You got a spade pip here, which is a little hard to make out all the details because of all the details that are in it, but it's a spade pip this time. It says crimson on top, and it says, there's a ribbon here on the bottom, and it says, never drink from the dead. Got it. Never drink from the dead. That's probably a good piece of advice. I would never drink from the dead. And then it says here, second edition resurrection on the bottom. So it's a pretty interesting ace of spades. Lots of detail. Like I said, it's almost a little bit too busy. It's got like, oops, branches coming off it on the sides and everything. So fairly interesting. A lot nicer than the one in the first deck, I think, because that one was just bizarre. Then the court cards. Bum, 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 bum. All right. Just hang on a sec. Here's what the court cards look like. All right. The jack looks like that. They're all the same, the jacks, queens, and kings. This jack looks like this. He's got blood on his dagger, and there's blood spatter all over the place, and he's just really weird looking. Obviously, it's not going to work for a lot of magic tricks or anything like that, because people will be like, what the heck is that? You know, they're not going to recognize the card because it's so odd looking or bizarre. The queen, you're going to like this. She's headless. The queen is actually holding her head in her hand next to her body. And you can see where her head used to be, just blood all over the place, and there's a blood spatter everywhere. And she's got her head in her hand. Yeah, told you it was bizarre. And the king? You thought that was bizarre? Look at the king. He stabbed himself in the head with a foot. I don't know if that's his foot, if it's the queen's foot, whose foot it is, but he's got a foot in the side of his head, as opposed to a sword. And blood just dripping from that wound, and blood splatter all over the place. And if you look at the clubs, again, exact same thing. Something I noticed about some of these, one thing I noticed for sure is the indice, or the J on a jack, is much bigger or longer than the indices on the others. Like, it's much bigger than the Q or the key on these others, as you can see. Another thing I noticed is the pips in the indice on these two are bigger than the king. You can tell, you might be able to tell a little bit. It's slightly bigger. I don't know if there's some kind of a printing error or what, but it's definitely bigger. And that's not the only one, because if you look at the hearts, and this one, again, the pips and the indice for the jack and the queen are much bigger than the one for the king. So it's a little bit odd. I don't know if that was some kind of printing error, if there was, some of them were printed with, I don't know. I just don't know. That it's pretty weird. Unless they're done like that intentionally for some trick or gimmick, or I don't know what it is. But yeah, pretty bizarre court card. I mean, the queen, she's holding her head in her hand. The king has got a foot or a leg jammed into his head. And they're all kind of just weird looking. But the cards, like I said, they're pretty interesting, as you can see. They handle pretty nice. They fan really nice. They're pretty smooth. Spread really nice. They spread. They're really smooth cards, I think. If they are air cushion finish, I mean, that's what it says on the box, but they're pretty nice for an air cushion finish, I think. They dribble nicely as well. And all that. If, again, you know, I'm not going to recommend this deck to everyone. It's not really that good for Magic. And not everyone is into this type of stuff. But it's a pretty interesting deck nonetheless. And you can see there's chipping on the edges already. You might not be able to tell so much. And I've only had this since yesterday. But nonetheless, like I said, it's a pretty interesting deck. If you're into collecting cards, definitely get these decks. If not, then, you know, don't get them. You know, I mean, if it's not your thing, or you don't like them, or they're too freaky for you, then don't run out and get them. But anyway, that's my review on these decks. For this one, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10, just because it's so creative. What they did with the court cards and the jokers and the aces, and because the quality seems to be pretty good. Would be possibly higher if the cards weren't chipping on the edges, or if they had white borders. That would have been so much better. Anyway, I apologize for this video getting so long. I didn't realize how long I've been talking. I will get back to looking at videos, and I'll have those results up by Sunday. See you next time. And thanks for attending the contest, and good luck to everyone.